It's Olivia Otieno. You're listening to Double O Direct, and I'm here with an amazing woman. She's advocate of the High Court. She's a family law specialist. Good morning, Ms. Njoroge. How are you?
Good morning, Olivia. How are you?
Incredible, because I just read that there's a reason why women aren't finding husbands. I'm about to play a track. I'm about to play a track from a lady who at 50 married herself a billionaire. So you see, if you're single, this is why 50-year-olds are killing it. But we want to hear from you because we're talking about everything before, during, and after marriage, but from a legal perspective. Tell me, Ms. Njoroge, what exactly is family law?
I would define family law to include matters about children, matters about matrimonial property, matters about succession after someone has died. And family law is very, very wide. So I wouldn't exactly put a specific description about it, but it includes children, marriage, matrimonial property, and succession law. So it's all that.
You know, love by definition is very emotional. People get into marriage, they've been swept off their feet, and more often than not, they don't take the time to just analyze the legalities. So whatever stage you're in, whether you're thinking about getting married, wanting to get married, or you're in a marriage, or, you know, there's also post-marriage. I mean, you know, you lose your spouse or you get divorced. It happens. So everything you need to know. You can also call us up on 0719 012 600 or on social media at SpiceFMKE. The hashtag is Double O Direct. To Double O Direct, I'm Olivia Otieno. I'm joined by an advocate of the High Court. Her name is Ms. Cynthia Njoroge. We are discussing family law, what you need to know before you get married, whilst you're married, and now in Janet Jackson's case, after marriage. So this scenario, I'm married. He's a foreigner, to be honest. I'm Mzungu. Let's say I'm willing now, as I have a new show, I'm on Spice FM. I want to trade in some way. What does the law say? What do I need to do?
My first question I'll ask you, do you have a marriage certificate?
Yes.
That's the most important thing. So if you have a marriage certificate, then it means you want a divorce, right?
Yes.
The Marriage Act itself gives grounds on which a divorce can actually happen. So I'll list a few of them. First will be cruelty. That's physical and emotional violence. The most amazing thing about the Marriage Act, one, we need to recognize that it actually recognizes emotional violence. In our Kenyan culture, we don't recognize something as emotional violence, but the Marriage Act does that. Two, I would say adultery, if there's any form of cheating. Three is desertion. Like your spouse disappeared 3 years. He woke up one morning and just decided, I'm out, and he goes away for 3 years. The fourth thing I would say is depravity. The things that you cannot imagine your spouse would do. So for instance, if he raped someone or an act of bestiality. In your question, you have said he's a foreigner. So my other question would be, where did your marriage happen? Did you actually form your union and went to church and had the marriage in Kenya or in a different country? In that situation, there's something what we call the conflict of laws topic. And the question any advocate would ask is, where did the marriage happen? So if it's in Kenya, then your divorce cause will actually happen within the Kenyan law. But if it's in a different country, then let's say in the UK, then that's where you will do your divorce proceedings. So those are some of the things that any person who is in search of a marriage with a foreigner would actually consider.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, the marriage took place in the UK. We have kids. They're dual nationals. What next?
The question I'll ask you, so fine, you have the UK, you do the divorce proceedings. The other thing we need to remember is that there were children in this union. So each of you has a parental responsibility in regards to that. There's also the maintenance of you, because for you to maintain that hotness, that spiciness, and how good you're looking, so it means that man has been maintaining you. So those are some of the things that someone will consider when you go to court. The beauty about maybe in different jurisdictions is that those things are actually put well explained. In Kenya, there's also that, but then Kenya, you always have to prove he was maintaining me, so he needs to pay me a bit of money to continue keeping up the spice. Our children have dual citizenship in our current constitution, it actually allows dual citizenship. So children can be citizens of the UK and at the same time Kenyan citizens. So that wouldn't really have an issue, but it will be in regards to what are your parental responsibilities in regards to that children. And I think it's important for us to define what parental responsibility is. And I will take what the Children Act defines parental responsibility to be. It's in regards to the maintenance, the duties, the powers of any parent or any party towards those children. How will you keep them happy? Make sure they go to school, they are healthy, they are playing, and all their rights are considered. Yes.
I am well informed. I want you to be as well. Call us up on 0719 012 600. 0719 012 600. You're listening to Double O Direct. I'm Olivia Otieno and Oscar Osir. I told you I was going to own this Double O title. Yes, we've just sealed it. I'll be telling you about the fashion priestess because today I'm dressed by her. Yes, this is local. Asante Sana. It's gorgeous. Find out who she is after we talk about family law with Cynthia Njoroge, advocate of the High Court. She's a family law specialist. What do we need to know, especially as women, before we get into marriage?
First, you must be of age. And when I mean of age, you must be 18 years and above, because in Kenya, 18 years is someone who is of sound mind. Two, and I know probably I will get a lot of backlash and people will get angry when I say this, but I think it is important for us to consider prenups. However, we live in a society that's not well informed and people get angry and they tell you when you're discussing a prenup, are you trying to say my marriage will fail? Or are you trying to say that I'm not capable?
Let's be honest. For some reason, there seems to be a shortage of men. People like Janet in their 50s have gone and taken them. So how do you bring this up in the first place? And you're just, quote unquote, grateful that you found yourself somebody who's willing to marry you in the first place.
I think now you have exactly put it just the way someone would put it. But they'll ask me, but why are you telling me I need to get a prenup? Are you thinking my marriage will fail? Or you think he will go and get property and lie behind me and all sorts of things? But I would love to put the sense in to inform viewers and tell them a prenup is not that. A prenup looks at the best interest for both of you as parties who are getting into this union. So it means we're looking at what happens to our children, what happens to the property we'll acquire jointly together when we are married, and what do I get in return. So it's a give and take situation. And I believe even when you're married, it is always a give and take situation. So it means if we have two properties and in case we divorce, then it means we won't have to fight. It just means I get this home, you get this home for the children. So who stays with the children? When do I get the children during holidays, over the weekends and such things? And I'll give an example, like Beyonce's prenup. I think it states when she gives birth, she gets, I think, $500 or something.
$500 or $500,000?
$1,000. And I'm like, I wish that would happen to me.
Wait, this is for every child?
Yeah, it's for every child.
Even during the marriage?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not just a monetary aspect. It's looking into it's looking about children and such things. And I think the other thing you also need to consider before getting married, the counseling that churches actually require for you, the premarital counseling. I think it's important to identify how compatible you are. How will you be able to settle the disputes when you're married? And I think at times when you go to court, the court will ask you, are you sure you really want to get a divorce? And the court will tell you, at times the court, without directly telling you, it believes your reasons for you wanting to actually get a divorce are not, there are things you can work on. So they tell you, have you tried counseling? Reconciliation means. So I think the premarital is very important because it helps you identify. So when you have a dispute in regards to financial issues, in regards to you having a difference of opinion, I want to build our future house here, such things. Your in-laws can also be an attribute of the dispute. How do we maneuver such things? Because at the end of the day, and I think it happens in every church, you're asked, are you sure you have chosen this person? Are you sure you want to commit to this person? Are you sure you're going to be in for better, worse, sickness, and in health?
I have a question.
Yes.
Background checks. I know some women who've gotten into situations, they just didn't know certain things about their now husband. How can you go about getting a legal background check on this person you're about to marry? Because sometimes, yes, you're in love. It's fantastic. It's all rainbows and, chocolate cake. But the truth is, there's certain things you might want to know. Has he ever been married before? Is he still married? Does he have a criminal record? How do you go about getting that?
I will start with, for instance, if he's married. There are certain marriages that are monogamous in nature, and they're actually provided in the Marriage Act. For instance, the civil marriage and the Christian marriage. Those are monogamous marriage. Monogamous, I refer like you cannot contract another marriage. You cannot get married. You cannot get married to someone else. So it means if you're in that kind of union, then you have no capacity to get into another marriage. The other marriage is a customary marriage. Generally, that is a potential polygamous marriage. So it means if you know you're married through the customary way, so if your husband decides, I want to get someone else, or the woman decides, I want to get another husband, and that's polyandry, and I think it's very foreign within the Kenyan system, then you're allowed. However, if you find out your partner is actually married to someone else in a form of a monogamous marriage, that means they cannot contract another marriage, then what you'll be looking for is an annulment. An annulment refers to a situation whereby you want the court to recognize that that marriage never existed. It never happened at all.
We were never together.
Exactly.
I don't know this guy. Do not associate me with him.
With that person. So you can get an annulment for that. Other grounds for annulment is whereby if you got a marriage certificate for fraudulent purposes, or you got into a marriage and you were under duress, coercion, maybe you were drunk, maybe you were under the influence of drugs, and that's kind of situation. The other thing is paternity fraud. You can have your marriage annulled for paternity fraud, whereby you probably get into a woman because you think the child she's carrying is yours, and then you do a paternity test and find out, oops, this child is not mine. So those are one of the grounds for paternity fraud. I know you're wondering, how is that possible? Women have done it because I think we live in a society where we prefer being considered married rather than being considered single.
So you just find the guy who's willing. You're like, hey, something has happened here. Let me find a dude.
So you are responsible for my child, that kind of reason. And in a situation where one party is not present at the marriage, and you're going to ask me, how can I not be present in my own wedding?
Yeah.
What if you have a twin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that could happen.
Yeah, and he comes and says, I'm sorry, but I didn't marry Miss Njoroge at all.
Yes.
I didn't get married to Olivia, so this is not me. So that kind of a situation. Another ground for where you can annul a marriage is if your marriage was not consummated.
We're going to get to that. Your questions, 0719 012 600. 3 days ago, it's Blue Cantrell Breathe on 94.4 Spice FM. We are streaming live on spicefm.co.ke. You're listening to Double O Direct. I'm Olivia Otieno, and I am wearing Kenyan-made clothing. Also by a woman. The show is a platform for women. All the songs, female artists, all my guests are going to be women. But dudes, don't feel bad. You can always reach us digitally at Spice FM KE, or you can call 0719 012 600. We're not bashing you. We're just wanting to find a space where we can communicate our truth. And one of the most important things that you can get yourself involved in is marriage. You were telling me, Ms. Njoroge, who is a family law specialist, that if your marriage isn't consummated, that is actual grounds for annulment. But who's going to say that it was or it wasn't?
I think that tends to be a very difficult question. But however, if you're not consummating, you're not.
It's a question of proof, because this has to go to court.
Yes.
So someone has to prove that it's not happening.
Yes.
Okay. The other things you mentioned, how do you go about finding that out from a legal perspective? Let's say he's married. Let's say it's fraudulent. How can you protect yourself legally, apart from just going online and searching for yourself?
Normally, when you want to get married and you have done all what is necessary, there's normally the 21-day notice that issues from the AG's office. And that within those 21 days, someone can issue a complaint and say, you're getting married to my husband. So you see, once the 21-day notice has been put, and that normally happens before you get married, right? So someone can say, but you're getting married to my partner. Someone else can say, I think this person is accused of the following crimes and the case is ongoing in court. However, I think the challenge is that we don't have a proper database that lists, like you're saying, what if you're getting married to someone who is a criminal? And you see, even if they gave you a certificate of good conduct, it can be genuine, it might not be genuine. So I believe currently the legal aspect that we have that someone can actually find out all these things is through the AG's office, because they normally have an entry that the following person was married to this person on this day in this particular church, and there has to be an entry of that and a certified copy of the entry, not just the entry, but the certified copy of that entry. And with that, you'll also find out there's a copy of the marriage certificate, and also a certified copy of the marriage certificate. So the only leeway you have in the meantime is that 21-day notice that is normally issued, so that for you to find out, is this person married? And at times, also that 21-day notice operates, it's in public, someone can access it. So if you can find out, oh, this person is getting married and maybe this person is married to my cousin, or we know this person has a criminal record, all those things actually allow you to get that information.
What about children? If one party doesn't want to have kids, is that also grounds for an annulment?
I wouldn't necessarily say yes, but I believe this is a conversation should happen between the two respective people. Please don't lie yourself that in the meantime she will change her mind. If she doesn't want to have children, she doesn't want to have children. And there's nothing wrong with a woman who does not want to have children. And I think that should actually be put in public, because we have a lot of shaming. You're assuming just because I'm a mother, I should be maternal. It's not an automatic thing.
Just because I'm a woman, I should be maternal.
Yes, it's not.
What about who can't have?
If you can't have children, there are ways in which you can have children. And I think I want to appreciate the fact that our women parliamentarians are trying to actually bring the reproductive health bill to light to address issues of IVF. And IVF is happening now in the country. You have adoption. You have surrogacy. They are those things that we don't talk about in public, because we feel like women who can't have children, and I don't like using the term barren because it's not a very nice term. It is important to understand that there are ways you can be a mother. Not if you can't get pregnant, there are ways which you can have children, like I've stated, IVF, adoption, surrogacy. And those are important factors. And I think you find very interesting couples who have walked through the journey of reproductive health, and your partner knows she can't have children because of medical issues 1, 2, 3.
Let's be honest. Sometimes it's not always the woman's fault.
Yes.
You know, they're both parties involved here. But the question was, is that grounds for annulment?
Currently, in our laws, it is not a ground for annulment.
What questions do you have? You can call on 0719 012 600, 0719 012 600. Before marriage, during marriage, and after. No, honestly, Whitney taught us some lessons. Do not marry a bad man.
This story of wanting bad boys because they excite you and all that kind of thing.
Wachana nayo.
Kaiyo too.
That Kanadi Kabuk, accountant. That's the one you need.
Dr. Yama Wakili.
Nothing against accountants. I've got mad respect. We're playing you a song from a woman who has 5 platinum albums. A huge diva. But you need to log on to spicefm.co.ke, because I am dressed by the fashion priestess. You need to see this outfit. You need to see. At Katush Nairobi, Katungulu Mwendwa, she was a top 40 under 40, I think in 2018. This dress is 18K. You know, she stocks in the US, she stocks in the UK. Lakini in COVID times, hapa Nairobi, who is buying an 18K
Na
dress?
biashara ilienda mbaya.
Ay, Katush, take us slowly. Pole, please. Huh? Are there friends and family discounts?
They should be.
No, but she's extremely talented. She's just as shy as she is talented. You need to go to @Katush Nairobi. Check out what she has on Insta. I'm telling you, you are going to love it. But still with Cynthia Njoroge, advocate of the High Court, family law specialist. In marriage, what are your rights?
Legally speaking, if you're married, within your marriage, you and your husband have equal rights. However, on the ground, things are very different.
Hey, situation kwa ground. Let's be honest.
Tofauti.
Hey.
So anyway, within the marriage, you and your partner have equal rights in regards to the children and the property that exists within that marriage. So it means you're married, you have children, both of you have joint parental responsibility. If it's in regards to your property, which is matrimonial property, all of you have the right to use it, access it, control it, and sell it to any other person because you have equal rights towards that property. But like we said, things in the ground are very different. You have, in regards to children, for instance, the mother always has the first instance of parental responsibility. But for a man, it's you sort of acquire that parental responsibility. Because if you're like me who has had children, you know, when they come to our medical records, they ask you, what's your name? What's your ID number? Then they ask you, are you married? Then they look at you. Then you tell them, no, we did. They ask you, are you married? Then you're like, yes, we are married. Then that's, you can see how the man acquires a parental responsibility. In property, you have men outright center acquiring property, and maybe you're probably taking care of the children at home and such things. You have seen situations whereby you later find out your man had, I think, 3 pieces of land somewhere in Kitengela. And you had no idea. But you went through a divorce.
Yes.
He tells you, this is the only much I can help you with, and this is the only property we're supposed to be dividing amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
So you see that kind of situation, and I think that happens because we live in a very patriarchal structure whereby women, and if I'm not wrong, I think only 1% or 4% of women actually have property within their name. And it's because we don't have those access of resources, because platforms for employment, the structures we live in, and also the policy, most of the policy makers that sit on that table for decision-making table are mostly men. So they don't consider the challenges that a woman goes through before you actually have your own collateral properly and that kind of thing.
Speaking of things that are kept secret, what about children that are born whilst you're married by somebody else from him?
Yes,
forget about that property, because that Kitengela property, we can deal with it. But this now is a living, breathing human. What do we do?
I believe we have reached a point nowadays, at times people hide their children. It is sad, whereby you're getting married to this amazing person who has come and swept you off your feet, but you have not disclosed to him you have a child, or he has not disclosed he has a child. One, that is very wrong. However, in a situation where you actually disclose to him that I have 2 children, I have 1 child, or he comes and tells you I have 1 child, there's a way you can acquire parental responsibility over that child. So you basically are going to court and state, I want the court to recognize that I have parental responsibility over this child. And that is in a period of not less than 12 months. It does not mean you wake up one morning and decide, I don't feel like I want to continue this parental responsibility. Even if you go before court, the court always looks at what is in the best interest of this child. So you see, you don't come into a woman's life and decide, okay, I'll pick up further duties, and then you decide along the way you feel like dropping them. That doesn't happen easily. That does not happen easily. The court will need for you to explain why, and you also have to come with grounds into regards to that.
Interesting. What are your questions relating to marriage before, during, and after? 0719 012 600. You're listening to Double O Direct, the hashtag Double O Direct, spicefm.co.ke to see this amazing outfit that I'm wearing. Only female designers. Or, you have a shop, you have your side hustle, and you're a lady. I could dress up in one of your outfits. Yeah, no earrings though, please. You've been asking me, can I bring you my earrings? Look at this whole situation with the headphones. It will not be working. It will not work. Going to be playing you a track that was iconic in 1989. I remember I was in a Loreto Convent Musangari fashion show. Man, did I not scandalize Sister Pauline, Sister Thomas More? What? I was looking so amazing in that fashion show. But right now we're talking about marriage. I'm here with legal expert Cynthia Njoroge. Family law is her area of expertise. And we've been talking about what are your rights within marriage and what actually happens if a child is born, not your child. Your husband has gone and had a child with somebody else whilst your marriage. Legally, does he have to disclose that to you?
I would say yes. But then, like I said, things on the ground are very different. Where I would say yes, and it is important, what if he dies? right? What happens to that child?
Not at your hand, but let's just say, okay.
Yes. You see, when you're distributing his property, because he has left property to you, the court will recognize that child. And maybe you don't want to go through the court succession route, filing of court documents and so on. You want to allocate part of the property to that child. So the fact that he has disclosed that to you, you are duty bound. Though I would not say legally duty bound, but it would be better because the court will either way, even if you don't allocate any sort of inheritance to the child, the court will allocate inheritance to that child, because the law of succession recognizes children that are born out of wedlock. The Succession Act recognizes those children.
I know situations where that has happened and the woman has said you are not to have any communication whatsoever with that woman or with that child. So the child is innocent. What can happen in that situation? What do you advise?
If that happens, that I am married and my husband has another child outside and I am here saying you're not allowed to communicate to that child like you have stated, are you forgetting the other woman can still walk up to court and say, me and this man had a child. I want him to exercise his parental responsibility of the child. So even if you will not allow him, the court will make him.
Right now, I'm joined by advocate Cynthia Njoroge. Her Facebook is actually just Cynthia Njoroge. Just go on to Facebook, look for Cynthia Njoroge. That is her. You need any advice pertaining to family law? She is an authority on the subject. She's just told me that, don't tell him that he should not have contact with the child just because that child is not yours and you two are married. Because if something ever happens and he dies, legally, that child can claim, right?
Yes.
Let him have contact.
Let him have contact. Besides, that child is very innocent. So why are you bringing your bitterness over someone who is so innocent?
Those are part of the vows in sickness and health and fidelity. Okay, maybe
that's his worst.
That's his worst. That's definitely. But let's think about the situation where no, it's not happening. We have to part ways. What next?
Fine, you want to part ways. So, are your reasons within the grounds that are provided for a divorce? If that was the only time he stepped out, and I mean only stepped out because he has got another child, then I think the court would want you to reconcile. However, if you have completely decided this is not something I'm interested in anymore because of what you have done, you have broken my trust completely, then now you go through the divorce cause. You state your reasons as adultery and you get. And it is important for people to know that in Kenya, there's nothing like divorce by consent. None.
Irreconcilable differences.
Those ones have to exist for divorce to actually be entertained within the court. Because in other countries, like in other countries, they allow divorce by consent. But however, in Kenya and Commonwealth countries, there's nothing like divorce by consent. That does not exist. So you'll go through the divorce course, and if it's final, you get your divorce. However, now the other situation comes in. Matrimonial property. Currently, division of matrimonial property happens within the HighCourt because the HighCourt has jurisdiction over that matter. So now you will go and list your matrimonial property. Then you will decide who gets what. And again, you'll also need to file a children's cause because we'll need to agree in regards to your children. Who gets custody over the children? Do you have shared custody? Does one have sole custody over the children? When does he get to see the child access and such things? Who gets to maintain the children? So those are some of the considerations that you will have to think about.
You've spoken about matrimonial property. What about property that you came in that was yours? You came into the marriage with that property.
This is the thing. Matrimonial property is considered as property that you acquired during the subsistence of that marriage. So for instance, if I had 5 plots in Kitengela before I met you, those properties are not matrimonial property. They remain my property. If he came with his own property he had acquired before he got married, that remains his property. But matrimonial property is property that is acquired during the subsistence of the marriage.
His parents died. They left him something while you're married. That now becomes matrimonial?
The trick with that would be it becomes matrimonial property if you give any form of contribution towards maintaining that inheritance that was left to him.
So at least pay some land rates.
Not exactly, because matrimonial contribution now is normally considered monetary and non-monetary. So that's the thing. Monetary is if, for instance, he's probably in the US, very busy, he doesn't maintain the property, meaning you're the one who takes care of the farming, it is cleaned, it is well used. People can maybe, if it's a house that people, maybe tourists are traveling and they need a place to sit, just to be in the meantime when they're within the country and they don't want to go to hotels, you're maintaining that. You're picking, you are going through emails with the respective tourists, you're maintaining it. You have contributed towards that, because when you're contributing, whatever income that is being generated from that property it's for the benefit of the family. So it ends up getting into the clause of matrimonial property.
We're going to talk about the cost of divorce. How much does it actually cost to get divorced? And I'm seeing all your messages on social. The hashtag is #OODirect. And it's not about the fact that Tanzania now has a female president. That's why we're having a female-centered show. And you want a male show? That's totally cool. Listen, all of the shows are more or less male-centered shows. It's nothing new. This is, however, #OODirect on Spice FM. During and post-marriage times. There's a gentleman called Steve. He wants a post-marriage situation. Steve, who's hurting you, man? Huh? Who's this bad gal? Who is this bad gal that is hurting you on a Saturday morning like today? So he says, I don't want any of those properties. I don't want nothing. I just want out. He's used the hashtag #OODirect. He wants out. How do we help him?
He just wants to get out. That's it. Well, I think I'll go back to the fact that for divorce to actually begin, the court will have to, you and your wife have to be separated for a period of 3 years. I think in that 3 years, the court is giving you time to decide. Are you really sure you want to separate from this person? Because you have to remember, you got into a union. When you got married, you were asked, are you really sure you want to commit? And I think it's important for people to understand what that question means. Are you really sure you want to commit?
Good and bad, sickness, health.
All that. Probably this is the bad for Steve in the meantime. So you see, in those 3 years, you're given that period to think. And if you come back and tell the court, even after those 3 years, I don't think I'm seeing a potential or a probability of me and my wife reconciling and existing as a unit again.
When it comes to cost, because, okay, I understand that you have to have that 3-year process, but how much does it actually cost to get divorced in this country?
It's an expensive process. I will not lie to you, because there's a lot of back and forth of documentation among your respective lawyers. So that takes a lot. I would say from 100,000 and above.
100,000, 3 years, and the other party also has to agree to it.
Yeah. And if you find a party who is a bit slow in the proceedings, in terms of the advocate shows up in court and says, I don't have instructions yet, and that means I have not been paid by my client. That is one thing. 2, they're just the willingness to want to get done with a divorce. So if they're really just not yet there, that also takes an impact on you. I actually say divorce, apart from just it maybe being financially exhausting, it is also emotionally exhausting.
I can actually feel that, but at the end of the day, if someone really wants to get divorced, we'll talk about the steps they need to take.
Yes.
Good morning, it's Olivia Otieno on #OODirect. And please, I ain't mad at you. If you want a male show, please go ahead. This is a safe space for women. Only female artists. I'm wearing a female designer. Thank you so much, Katungule Mwendwa. Only female guests. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're a man and you want to be heard, you can reach us online. You can reach us via telephone, or you can send a female representative. Today, I've been with the amazing Cynthia Njoroge. She is an advocate of the High Court, a family law specialist. We've been talking about marriage before, during, and as Stephen is going to experience, after. Parting words for anybody seeking this sort of union, Cynthia.
One thing, it's important to have a marriage certificate, and not just a marriage certificate, a certified copy of the marriage certificate, an entry of your marriage, and a certified copy of that entry. And I think it's also important for viewers to be informed. Come with stay are not marriages.
Oh,
So
what do you mean?
Yeah, so don't say, tumeishi pamoja miaka 8. That's no longer recognized.
What do you mean?
Before it used to be a rebuttable presumption. When I say that, I mean the community recognizes all that you and him are husband and wife, and you call on another husband and wife. But if you don't have a certificate, how do you assert your rights in a marriage? How do you assert your rights over the matrimonial property? Because if he hasn't made you a wife, and he probably made someone else a wife legally, meaning Christian marriage, civil marriages, Islamic, customary, Hindu, they have certificates so they can prove. But you don't have a certificate.
So you can squat on land for 15 years and it's yours, but you can live with a guy for 15 years and he ain't yours.
Yes, if you don't have a marriage certificate.
Hey, 00 Direct, a safe space for women. Memorable, worthy mentions. Women who have inspired you in some way. Okay, not your mother, not your grandmother, not your sister, not your aunt, no relatives, right? I will start off with the First Lady of Namibia for many, many reasons. If you don't know, please Google. Please Google this woman. What about you, Cynthia?
I think in our Kenyan setup, I would say Martha Karua. I don't think I have met a woman who really challenges the political space like she does.
Hey, and now we have a female East African president. So, Martha, you're welcome. You can tell us about your aspirations right here.
Yes, because she says it as it is. And especially in the political sphere, we don't accept women who have an opinion.
Just in politics, I see it everywhere.
Yeah, but then in politics, it's a very different arena because the patriarchal structures are so grounded that I love the way she challenges them. Like she says, I don't think you're doing your job well, and she says it as it is. And she disagrees with policies that people are very busy celebrating. This one will work for us, and tells you, no, it will not work for you, whether you like it or not, because you don't want to hear the other side. You don't want to hear of a woman who has a different opinion about anything.
Female artists,